Good morning. I'm glad to greet and meet all the participants of the forum. Welcome to our webcast, Beck et al. Integration of with Office Profile HCL connections. And in this session, we will try to tell you how to integrate content from Profile Microsoft Office 365 to make your corporate network better in searching of the necessary information in the profile. Just several words about our company. Beck et al. Is represented by three business practices. The first is enabling of digital technologies. The second is data from data to results, support and business analytics on the basis of AI, and flexible IT system, where we shape a flexible IT and help organizations to transfer their services in IT into the flexible services based on the cloud services. Our company, Beck et al., has offering also within the HCL connections. This is in first design and setup of HCL connections for your infrastructure. And the next, we are positioning connections, testing, migration, upgrade, and automatic setup. And the next step is the using in business processes. And we are also providing customer service. The Beck et al. Company is positioned in München, in the Munich, and we have also branch enterprises in Brazil, Florianopolis, and in Romania, in Cluj. The Beck et al. Subsidiaries, as you can see on the map, and we are rendering constant IT support at least for 15 hours a day. Here you can see some of our technology partners, and the partners are such specialists like not only HCL Connection, Microsoft, and Amazon Web Services, for example. And there are also a range of other technology partners. Our customers are as follows. You can see here many international companies like Continental, Infineon, Magna, Lufthansa, Allianz, and the others. And let us speak about the essence of our today's presentation, the integration with Office Profile of HCL connections. A couple of words about me. I am a consultant at Beck et al. My name is Anna Lipay. I work for the last 2 years. I was born in Moscow. I live in Munich. I've studied linguistics in the Moscow State University, and I also studied computer linguistics at the University of Munich. And my colleague today is together with us, Martin Schmidt, and he is the senior IT architect, and he has also experience in HCL connections since 2007. And as you can see here, his experience in deployment, migration, operation, and customization. The technologies are Kubernetes and Amazon Web Services. Now we will go to our presentation, and at the very beginning, there were some initial data. What is the integration with Office Profile? Further, we will speak about infrastructure of synchronization. Then we will speak a little bit about the LDAP connector, and later we will speak about the IBM Security Directory Integrator. And at the end, we will speak about the customization of HCL connections profile. So the main question is, why do we need Office Profile integration? we know that corporate communication platform, it comprises such parts and such directories as knowledge management, intranet, owning and unification and synchronization of files, work stream collaboration, and digital office. So what is a corporate communication platform? Community is the place where you create, get to know, exchange contact, share it, find experts, and also add knowledge to the knowledge base, which can be straightforward used and found within your system. Within your community, it's very easy to create or share contact, to exchange thoughts with your experts, find solutions, get to know each other, get to know news, and develop different points of view and go deeper into the knowledge and understanding and create and exchange ideas also, of course. So we are all different. We have different backgrounds and different ways of working. We are trained differently. We lead different projects and we change information according to this and add it to our profile. And to synchronize our profile in Microsoft Office and HCL connection, we need integration to easier and with a better comfort find the necessary information. This is how profile looks out of the components of Microsoft 365. We have a contact data, connections, project, skills, and experience of work. The profile of Microsoft Office and HCL connections have a common key. This is either user principal name or Azure ID. This provides for copying all the Office profile data for all people and users who have a profile in Microsoft Office 365 and in HCL connections into a separate database table on the HCL connections database server. And this chart is updated once in an hour. This is how HCL connections profile looks. Here we see the same data that we have in Microsoft Office profile. This is our experience, contact data, skills, projects, and all the necessary information. Integration helps us to transfer information from Office profile to the HCL connections profile. And the data is being synchronized into the HCL connections profile database, and the contact becomes searchable. Further, my colleague Martin will tell you about the technical details of how this integration is being done. Martin, the floor is yours.
Hello, welcome also from my side. My colleague already introduced me. So I'm the guy who developed and implemented this solution. The idea is a normal user profile is in local Active Directory, and with this synchronized using this SDI or in earlier times TDI, synchronized into the profile database. This is the normal way of operation. Additional to the local Active Directory, users can, if you have the integration in Microsoft Office, users can add their schools and all this other stuff you have seen in the Azure directory or in Delph. And to synchronize this data, Microsoft provides the MS Graph API, which is located in the internet and can be synced by this LSC tool I'm using here into a separate database. And from this database, the normal TDI component with some extensions can pick up this data and add this data here again to the profile database, where then HCL Connections profile can pick up this data and display it. The advantage of doing it with this synchronization stuff is that the data becomes part of the user's profile and therefore becomes searchable. The first integration we built was just a user interface integration, where when the user opened his profile or a profile of a different user, the user computer did the lookup into the Delph or the Azure directory, but therefore the data was only for display and therefore not searchable. I'm coming now to more details, the technical details to implement this solution. First, some words about this LSC, the Ldap synchronization connector. This is an open source connector, very similar to the TDI component. It's not that powerful, but for here, it's easily extended and it's easier to use. To get this project done, I programmed created one plugin for this LSC. This is this foreign key plugin. I used to look up the users integrated in HCL Connections and get this users and only look up the Delph profile for this users. And the second plugin I'm using is the MS Graph API plugin, which is able to pull the data from the MS Graph API. Per default, the plugin only supports the Azure Profile ID. But I extended that this plugin also allows you to use the user principal name, because the user principal name is more likely to be available inside HCL Connections. Of course, you have to configure it a little bit. So when you go to the configuration, you have first in the header of the configuration file, which is named LSC XML, you have to make the configuration schema extensions available. So you can see here this line here, I reference the extension for the Microsoft Graph API, and here I reference the foreign key plugin. You can download this from the GitHub directory, which I will link later. And of course, when you run the tool, you have to make these plugins also available using these commands. Everything how to integrate plugins is of course documented in the LSC project homepage. The second one is to configure the source of the plugin. So where does the data come from? And here you can see I use here the foreign key service configuration, and this one has two sources. The first is the key source, where the key data comes from. This is a connection to the profiles database to get each user which is active in HCL Connections and retrieve the user principal name from the database. And then the second is the data source component. So with the user key from the first database, I just do a lookup into the MS Graph API to retrieve all this data, and which data is configured here. So I retrieve the ID of the user principal name again, the display name, and here are all the dates that are available in this URL, this API, and are in time of interest. Why do I this complicated? Why I do not look up through all users in MS MS Graph API. So normal operation of this plugin would be look up all users in the MS Graph API and download the information. For small companies, it might be okay. For larger companies where not all users who have an Office 365 profile are in HCL connections, you might synchronize data that is not relevant for HCL connections, and therefore, for data privacy reasons, you should not or you must not synchronize this data because you don't need it. Therefore, I used the solution to only synchronize user data which is relevant for HCL connections. Of course, I need to transform the data a little bit. The MS Graph API returns the data in a multi-value field. In HCL connections, the extension attribute are usually single value fields. Therefore, I have to convert it. And the easiest way was to use the Jackson library, because the Jackson library is already part of the LSC project. And with this, I convert the multi-value fields into a single JSON formatted data string. So at the end, the string, the data look like this one. It's a JSON array of all my, in this case, the past projects I'm part of. And with this, I have a single value I simply could add to the extension attributes of HCL connections. One important thing is as well, the MS Graph API is using an account into the Azure Active Directory to sign on to the MS Graph API. Your Office 365 administration needs to register an application with the permission user.read.all, and of course an admin has to give his consent. So when you check the permission, it's a little small here. You see that user read all has an application permission, and here it is granted. And of course, when you register such an application, the administrator gets a client ID, which is a number, and a secret, which is some secret key. And this, you have this information you have to enter in this LSC Graph API configuration settings. So you have to specify a client ID. It looks similar like this one. You have to add the secret you receive, and you have to specify your tenant name. Usually it's your company.com, company.ru or something. Your Azure Active Directory admin could tell. And with this information, the application can log in to the MS Graph API and retrieve the content, the data. The second component is the IBM Security Directory Integrator, or informally named the TDI. This is the component that integrates the profile information into the connections database. So each synchronization is configured and done in a so-called assembly line. And this assembly line must be extended to fetch the data. The idea is quite similar to the fetching the manager information. TDI or SDI has no direct integration of the MS Graph API. I could have programmed one, but I decided to use this asynchronous process. First, to use one synchronization to synchronize the data in a so-called Delft data database, and then in SDI, I choose the JDBC data source, so I just connect to this database and retrieve this information. In this case, the SDI is much faster because the MS Graph API is not the fastest API to use. When you open the configuration of the SDI component, you see that there are HCL provides a lot of assembly lines, and I think I modified these 3 ones, because in all these 3s, the manager is looked up, and I did the Delph data lookup just below the manager lookup function. So I know it's on the right place and it will execute it on the every user. I added on this place a JDBC lookup connector to retrieve the user data from the JDBC data from the Delph database based on the user principal name that is already known from the synchronization, because the first fetch of data comes from the internal Active Directory. I named the values like Delph underscore display name, Delph underscore skills, or Delph underscore ID. So in the work object of the SDI component, these variables are exist with Delph underscore something, similar like mail or the physical delivery office. With this, I could easily extend the standard configuration of the TDI component and say there is an extension ID called Delph underscore display name or Delph underscore skills. And because of these names here I used for the name in the connector, and this name are the same, the data is automatically synchronized as extension attribute into the connections profile database. Of course, the profile types has also to be extended to make them available. So you add this properties for each value you want to add. You add one property to say this value is a valid name of a profile entry. Maybe you have different profile types. You could add this information only to the profile type that have an Office 365 profile, or you add it to the default profile type. After this, the data is synchronized into the HCL connections database and available to the profile integration. Now we need to extend HCL connections to display this data. For this, we have to also extend the data model inside HCL connections. And of course, we need to extend the display, this profile details FTL, which is responsible for displaying all the profile information. To extend the HCL connections profile data model, you have to customize the profiles config XML and the profile types. The extensions are quite similar to the ones you have to do for GDI. In the profiles config, you define additional extension attributes to be available. And in the profile types, you also say for this profile type, this data is available. The most important stuff here is, in comparison to TDI, where this line is not relevant, is this hint to full text index true. This tells the full text index to also index this data. This is the desired behavior because we want to be available that users can search for this data. If you want to show some data, but you do not want that users want to search for this data, just specify false, and this data will then not be full text indexed. The second step is to provide this Delph info or Office profile tab in the profile display pane. For this, it's quite easier that you could extend the widgets config XML and provide a simple widget definition. I added it below the contact info and make this available. And yes, you have to specify the Delph info unique ID identifier, which is used to identify the widget and to identify the name of the widget for the translation or the string, this Office profile string in the header. Additionally, for this widget, which is the default widget, which displays also the contact information and other stuffs in these tabs, is the value of the section in the profile details FTL file. At the bottom of the widgets config, there's also a configuration which widgets do have to display. This has to be extended as well to add this widget in the right place to be displayed on the profile page. In the profiles config, you have to register your strings customization, and then you create your string customization. And here the delf info, this is the ID here. You say for the ID, translate it to this one. If you want to have different languages, you could simply add here more language files. You add after this UI _RU for Russian, and then you put in here the Russian translation. So this one is the default translation, and you could use other languages as well. So when you have done this and restarted connections, you have the tab. Now we need to fill in the tab. This is quite small, and maybe you read it more carefully later when you have the presentation. This is how I extended the profile details FTL. You create a new section at the bottom, and here the section label is the delf information. This is the label I put in the widget config as the section label. And then you write here in the FTL languages or in HTML all the stuff you want to have here. At the beginning, I have here some buttons. I added some buttons to open the delf profile directly, or if it is my key. So here there's the utility is my true. So if this is my profile, I add also a delf edit button, so the user can immediately jump to the edit my profile functionality inside delf. And after the buttons, I just create the table to display all the values here. There are some dots, so there is not everything. You have to create for every information you want to display. You have to create such a render properties thing. Of course, you have to specify some names. Here, it's in the NLS key. You specify the name of the things. It's also translatable, and you have to specify how to render it. Render as list means is this as it showed later with this HTML list. This list type or this render type is does not exist per default. So you have to extend the connections configuration. This render as list is defined in the common util FTL. In the common util FTL, there are all these helping functions to display stuff. When you check this file, you find a macro called render value. And when you check this value, find something as render as email. And just below, you can add this code. If render as equals list, then add this type of HTML content. This is quite simple, so it replaces the unquote because the JSON string has this quotation in it. So I change this to a normal quotation, and then with this eval, it does convert the JSON representative in a multi-value field again. And then I could here use this one for every item in the list. I display list, which gives you this one. If you do not like this one, just add it, change it to your needs and to change the display of the data. Of course, you want to have some names to your values. These names are configured in the resources of the profiles templates, the template properties, which are located in the Lotus Connections config directory. And here, add to your translations, just add the strings. And this label.delf, this was the NLS key. And then you can here just add the files. So here are the links where you can get more information. the ls tool project by itself. This is the GitHub repository of the MS Graph API I extended to be able to use the user principal name. And this is the link to the foreign key plugin. This is completely was developed by me on its own. And of course, here are the configuration and the administration and from HCL Connections on how to extend this data. So if you have some more questions, I'm here now to help you. If you have other questions or more complex questions, I'm happy if you contact me on with my email or other means.
Мартин, Анна, спасибо огромное вам за эту сессию.
Martin, Anna, thank you very much for this session.
У ребят пока что нет вопросов, но если что, да, они вам обязательно напишут.
We don't see any questions coming so far, but if there will be any, we'll send them to you.
Thank you.